Hello everyone, welcome to our discussion today on Power Platform performance. Power Platform have been very popular these days. It's probably one of the most popular low-code, no-code platform. It's also a leader in the Gartner technology quadrant. But if you do some research, there are many people who complain that Power Platform apps are really running slow, or it's taking a very long time to run. So in this video, we're going to look at what are the main issues that primarily impact and influence performance, and probably also look at how we can work around them. So the first problem that we should talk about is throttling. Microsoft hosts the Power Platform in their data centers, and it comes free with the O365 subscription. And as it's free, there are different restrictions. Because of that, it cannot run any faster than the limits that are placed. The second is the Dataverse. Dataverse is a new name for the Common Data Service, which is essentially the database for Dynamics. And all Power Platform tools are connected to it. Dataverse is not built for speed. It is built for consistency. So platforms that are not built for speed, and if you are trying to extract performance, it becomes a challenge. And finally, the expertise of developers in Power Platforms. It's an easy drag-drop environment, and everyone can get started and build something really useful. But because of the simplicity, many people don't dive down to the details to find out the internal workings. This creates a problem in understanding what is the real cause of the issue and why it does not scale. Now let's look at how can we get better. First, you need to be aware of the limits and restrictions that are in place. The limits are in terms of how many you can run, flows per user, data that you can load, and even how many actions can be there in a flow, all creating limits in the runtime and throttling the environment. And if you're running a lot of them at the same point in time, it will slow down even further. Now here are some of the numbers on the screen. As you can see, these are the current limits for Power Automate and similar numbers that are available for others as well. You also need to be careful about executing excessive amounts of actions. Now let's think of a scenario you are binding to a SharePoint list or to a CRM object. And if you have not been careful, for every change in their object, you will end up firing that event, and the workflow or the Power App will start to reflect the data. So we need to be careful about how we are binding and what data we are pulling in. Too many times and too many actions will end up in throttling that system down so that you are not eating up a lot of that processing power that Microsoft has allocated for your tenant. The third is around large sets of data. We rarely start with a huge set of data, but slowly it builds up, or we throw a lot at it. That is probably the biggest problem in terms of performance. As I mentioned before, Dataverse is not built for speed, so it's always better to limit the data. It helps both how many executions are in parallel, as well as how much time it takes to run. If you're facing this problem, our advice would be for you to see if you can redesign it. There are a lot of different aspects and a lot of information available on the internet that will help you redesign the system. I will leave some of them for you in the description below. One of the obvious trade-offs that you might want to look at would be, rather than going with the default connector, to find a fast-performing connector. For example, loading up a SharePoint list versus working with a flat file. Loading a file is far more efficient than loading a list. So you might want to choose that and get that additional performance benefit. Also, there are restrictions on how many records you can read from SharePoint versus from a flat file. So this will also help you get faster without compromising too much on the features. I think that's all I have to share for today. I will leave you with some of the reading materials in the comments below. Hope that this video helped you get an understanding around performance of Power Platform. If you have more questions, reach us at hello@innovar-tech.com.